On a stormy night, rain poured down in relentless sheets, flooding the muddy roads of an old, abandoned farm. A lone horse stood in the middle of it all, his eyes fixed on the distant road. This was Max, once the proud companion of his owner, the elderly farmer Mr. Thompson. Tonight, however, the farm was eerily quiet and empty. Max refused to move, waiting as if he somehow knew that his beloved owner would return one day. Years ago, Mr. Thompson had discovered Max, a frail, wounded horse, abandoned deep in the woods. Max was scared and hungry, his eyes filled with fear. But Mr. Thompson couldn't just leave him there. He took him in, feeding him, tending to his wounds, and slowly earning his trust. From that day on, Max and Mr. Thompson became inseparable. Max followed the old farmer everywhere, through the fields to the barn, and even to the porch where they would sit quietly at the end of the day. One night, when a fire broke out in the barn, it was Max's frantic neighing that saved Mr. Thompson's life, alerting him just in time to escape the flames. The bond between them only grew stronger after that. As the years went by, Mr. Thompson's health began to deteriorate. The doctors insisted that he couldn't stay on the farm any longer. Reluctantly, he was taken to a hospital, leaving behind the animals he had cared for his entire life. The farm hands began to relocate the animals, but Max was different. He wouldn't budge. No matter what they tried, he simply refused to leave the gate. Day after day, Max stood by the entrance, eyes fixed on the road, waiting for Mr. Thompson. The farm hands brought him food and water, but Max barely touched any of it. His once shiny coat grew dull, and his eyes lost their spark. He had no interest in new caretakers. He only longed for one person, his beloved owner. After weeks of hospital care, Mr. Thompson was finally discharged, but he was weak, and it took him time to regain his strength. Meanwhile, Max continued to wait, his once strong body growing weaker by the day. Yet, he never gave up hope. One stormy evening, the sound of an old truck echoed through the silent farm. Max's ears perked up. He recognized that sound, and there, stepping out of the truck, was Mr. Thompson. "Max, I've come back, my old friend," whispered Mr. Thompson, his voice breaking with emotion. Max, despite his exhaustion, found the strength to stumble forward, his eyes shining for the first time in months. The storm raged on, the sky crying tears of sorrow as Max's weary legs struggled to hold him up. Mr. Thompson knelt by his side, his frail hands gently stroking the horse's wet, matted mane. But as Max lay there, fading fast, memories from years gone by flooded the old farmer's mind. Memories that had once brought joy, but now only deepened his grief. Years ago, on a misty morning, Mr. Thompson had found Max as a frightened, injured colt. He was just a small, scrawny thing left for dead on the outskirts of the forest. The poor creature was covered in cuts and bruises, shivering from the cold, with eyes that reflected nothing but pain and fear. But Mr. Thompson couldn't turn his back on the helpless foal. With gentle hands, he lifted Max into his truck and took him back to the farm. The Thompson family quickly fell in love with the little horse. Mr. Thompson's wife, Mary, and their 2 children would spend hours caring for Max. The children would bring him treats, brush his coat, and cheer him on as he grew stronger day by day. Max, in turn, blossomed under their love. The once frightened colt had transformed into a spirited and joyful horse, always eager to play with the children or trot alongside Mr. Thompson as he worked in the fields. Mary would often laugh, saying, "Max is the happiest horse I've ever seen." The family would spend their evenings together in the barn, watching Max frolic in the pasture as the sun set behind the distant hills. Those were the golden days, a time when the farm was alive with laughter, joy, and the promise of tomorrow. But their bond was about to be tested in a way none of them could have imagined. One fateful night, a fire broke out in the old barn. The flames roared, devouring everything in their path. The Thompson family was sound asleep, completely unaware of the danger that was quickly closing in on them. But Max, ever vigilant, smelled the smoke. With a frantic neigh, he kicked at the stable door with all his might until it burst open. Charging through the burning barn, Max braved the thick smoke and falling debris. He reached the farmhouse, his loud neighs finally waking Mr. Thompson. The old man jumped out of bed, alarmed by the sight of flames consuming the barn. "Mary, kids, get up. The barn's on fire," he shouted as he ran outside. The family scrambled to safety, but without Max's desperate cries, they might not have made it in time. Mr. Thompson always believed that if it weren't for Max's bravery, that night could have ended in tragedy. From that day forward, Max was not just a pet. He was the guardian angel of the Thompson family. The bond between Mr. Thompson and Max deepened, the old farmer often whispering to his beloved horse, "You saved my family. I owe you everything." But time has a way of stealing away the things we cherish most. The children grew up and moved to distant cities. Mary passed away, and soon only Mr. Thompson and Max remained on the now quiet farm. Through the years, the two old friends became inseparable companions, finding comfort in each other's company as they wandered through the fields they had once worked together. But as Mr. Thompson's health failed, it was time for him to leave the farm. Max watched helplessly as his beloved owner was taken away, leaving him alone for the first time in years. The days grew longer, the nights colder, but Max stood by the gate, refusing to leave, his eyes always fixed on the road where he last saw Mr. Thompson. Now, lying in Mr. Thompson's arms after weeks of waiting in the rain, Max was finally at peace. The years of loyalty, love, and sacrifice had come to an end. As Mr. Thompson cradled his old friend, tears streaming down his face, he whispered, "You waited for me. Even when you were suffering, thank you, Max." The once proud and spirited horse gave a final soft nicker, his eyes closing as the first rays of dawn broke through the storm clouds. Surrounded by the familiar scents of the farm and the comforting presence of the man he loved most, Max took his last breath, knowing he was home. After Max's passing, Mr. Thompson knew he had to honor the memory of his faithful friend. He decided to transform the farm into a sanctuary for rescued animals. He planted a tree in Max's favorite spot, under which he used to wait. Each morning, Mr. Thompson would visit that spot, whispering, "Thank you, Max, for showing me the true meaning of loyalty." The farm became a haven for animals in need, and every rescued horse brought to the sanctuary was a living testament to Max's enduring spirit. Though Max was gone, his legacy of love, loyalty, and patience continued to inspire everyone who stepped foot on the farm.